Welcome, Littlebits. Thanks for joining. Right in time to see the meeting agenda for today. Want to talk a bit about the workgroup progress, the structure one, which is renamed almost in the podcast group. Then want to give a bit of an update on the tasks and rewards, and go a bit into budgeting. And I want to connect it to budgeting, also talk about roles and what kind of roles we can support right now. Yeah. And then there's room for open topics. So you can also, if anybody here has topics that should be on the agenda, feel free to suggest. Or if something pops up during the meeting, we can add that later. All right. Let's dive right in. There we go. Basically, after cleanup last week, all the translations and verification tasks keep coming in at a good speed, so that's nice to see. I can give a little view of the... you can all see the work, no need to show, I guess. Something that is getting a bit caught up by time progressing, basically, is the Rejuve beta preview. Basically, today it was announced that signups for the closed beta are open now, and first invites I expect to be sent either late today or early tomorrow. And yeah, so the blog was put out announcing that, and I will still leave the task open. The beta being open for the community doesn't take away from the review, like writing a blog-ish article on the app. On the video shorts for the pod leader meeting, this is a task that's previous pod leader meeting. This task was not that well defined, and we touched on this last week as well. And that's honestly still the current state. It's not didn't progress in defining like what kind of content, what kind of shorts, what kind of There's no clear directions. This is still something that needs to be adjusted. For now, it's pretty much a free-for-all, which in itself is fine, I guess. You can have that, but it's on my list to define that further. Actually, I wanted to include on the sheet a bit of an update on the work groups, but I see that didn't quite make it on the slides. Well, it's fine. Because part of the roles would also be membership of the work group. So let's first go on a little update on the podcast work group. Perhaps Julian, can I ask you to share a little bit on that?
Yes, certainly. So at this point, we're hoping to do some meeting interviews, basically, with a couple of the deep funding winners from round one. One of them is Kenrick Nelson from the risk-aware datasets. So we've been chatting with Kenrick, and he's really busy along with everyone else. Seems very busy right now. So he's looking to be ready to do an interview on the 15th of July. So that's good. Reaching out to Patrick over at Museverse, the music lesson and performant metaverse kind of VR thing, which is very interesting to me as someone who plays music and super cool stuff there. Been trying to reach out to him, but he reached back out, and then I reached back out to him, and we haven't really been able to connect. So, got in touch with Jan, and as kind of like a, not a last ditch effort, but like just wasn't really getting anywhere. So Jan reached out to him. We're waiting to hear back. I haven't heard anything back from him yet, but I'm sure that'll eventually happen. So originally what I did moving forward was I had written out a couple of speeches type things, monologues, to highlight, what the community podcast was to me, what it meant to me, what I saw, the utility of it would be, and how I wanted it to be seen by the community and the interaction between, the podcast and the community. And also I wrote out a big thing about the ambassador program itself and how it's been going and what we've been doing. And I basically tried to get it to where I was just reading the scripts of it, and watching over that. It was okay, but it just seemed very unnatural. And so from that, I then re-recorded everything, and I basically took the notes and was looking at them a lot more and almost trying to, I was glancing, I think, too much at the notes and not actually, looking more naturally and speaking from the heart. So those were better, I think, but in some ways worse. So I have now re-recorded another time where I basically had the notes there, would glance at them from time to time, and just basically spoke from the heart about what, I was trying to say. And those recordings seem to be much better in that sense, because we need to have retention. We need to have people that, I'm not, if I'm going on for minutes and minutes on a time on something, it's got to be, I just feel like, and that was a suggestion from Jan specifically, to just kind of speak, and it makes more sense. I think it was useful for me to write that stuff out and to clearly define it in that way, but speaking it more conversationally, I think is more useful. So those are recorded. I can put those out to the community in the podcast app, which is what I did before, if that's of interest to people. But those are there. I think those are going to work out better as far as like an episode 0 type situation where we just define what we're doing before we actually get these interviews in. Last week at the podcast meeting, it was just Peter and I, and we were kind of talking about one thing I want to avoid is just constantly regurgitating everything, that's happening. I think it's really important to do that to some extent, but that's not really where my passion is going to constantly lie, is just sitting here, spending all this time trying to figure out where everything's at, and then packaging that out to the community. I think there's definitely a need for that to some extent, but we've just kind of been brainstorming, like, what do I as, like, one of the people involved, what do I actually want to do? What do I want to spend my time doing? And I think, to me, maybe highlighting certain specific interest.
You seem to be cutting out a little. I'm not sure if that's me or...
No, I lost your sound as well, Julian.
Yeah, Julian's frozen for me.
Oh, darn. I'm excited about everything he's putting out. This is so cool. I'm excited that the Deep Fund candidates will get to be interviewed and get some airtime. That's exciting. I guess I wish he could hear that feedback too.
Seems to be reconnecting, perhaps.
Perfect.
Power went out due to a storm. It's coming back now. So, okay, that happens. All good. In the meantime, I'm trying to be a stand-in TiVo, keeping notes on the Miro board.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically that was a really good discussion we had on just checking out where the passion is instead of forcing some kind of topics like for instance like the ecosystem updates, like that connects to what Julian was saying about regurgitating content. Like yeah, that would feel a little bit forced to have it become like this audio version basically of the blog posts we're putting out, which in a way it can perfectly. I think the podcast can perfectly be a vehicle for that. That's in itself not a problem, but it's also important that the person doing that enjoys doing that. Yeah, that's where this. I cannot speak, of course, for Julian's passions, but I'm sure he will do so when he hops on when his power is back. But that makes perfect sense. Like you should really avoid that people end up doing tasks for the ambassador program, and then it feels like chores. So it's like something that they have to do because they somehow rolled into it or something like that. Like, yeah, that should definitely be avoided. As far as I'm concerned, and I think as everybody should be concerned. You appear somewhat back, Julian.
Hey.
Awesome.
All right, I'm back. I have a lightning storm going on, so I just totally lost power. But I'm back. My phone. I guess that's how we'll have to do it. So sorry about that, folks. Apologize for the interruption.
No
but
problem.
yeah, so I mean, did you want me to finish perhaps on kind of where I was going with that?
Well, we lost you on what your passions are, so yes, definitely.
Okay, so the passion, I mean, and we were talking about this together, Peter, last week on the meeting, but I thought it would be nice to potentially highlight different stories in the community, like more of like instead of just constantly saying, okay, this is what's happening this week in Singularity Night. Like I was saying, I think there's a need and a voice for that. And certainly when certain bigger things happen, I want that to be part of it. But especially now where, I mean, there's very few people that are working on this podcast. So obviously other people are encouraged to help. A lot of the work is coming down to me doing stuff, and that's fine. But if I'm going to do that, I want to be doing what I want to do. And so, yeah, like highlighting specific, interesting, stories, like deep diving more into actual stories from the community, I think is definitely an area of interest that I want to explore as far as getting, I just want that to be somewhat of a significant part of what I'm doing here. So that's just some thoughts. I know we had talked with last week. Peter had told me that I guess Architect has kind of been thinking about what his involvement in the community podcast would be, and I think he's kind of just trying to find his place, which is totally understandable. That's where I'm at too, but beyond that, it looks like talking to him, I got a message from him yesterday. He actually wants to do some sort of interview with himself. So there is some involvement. I think after further deliberation, it looks like he does want to still stay involved to some extent. I'm just looking up. I have some notes that I did for what I wanted to talk about at the meeting, kind of highlighting what I've been doing. So that is something that will be, I think we can maybe fit something like that in before, while we're waiting for these interviews with Kenrick and Patrick. We can maybe fill in an interview with Architect. I know Peter had said he would be interested in doing maybe a little interview about the podcast. Not about the podcast, about the ambassador program. Something in that nature. Like we're still brainstorming to see, what value we can bring in that way. Another thing that I've been involved in is a community governance. Bi-weekly, we've had a couple of meetings. I know we've had some other people in there. Peter obviously was there. And that's been super exciting and interesting. So I think highlighting that in some way would be good to do, because we've really been diving into the deep funding and how the actual voting went with that, and how that went, and trying to really fine tune that for future deep funding, rounds, which that's a super interesting topic. So that's something that I'd like to potentially jump into there. Let me see what else I have here. just trying to find topics, because while we're waiting for these interviews to happen and thinking about where do we really want this podcast to be, do we want it to be very like much more defined and kind of week to week the same thing, or do we want to have it be more, well, we're more inspired by this week, so that's what we want to do. And my intuition is really pushing me towards, let's see what is going to be useful or the most interesting to us this week, and less worrying about, oh, we have to have the specific structure that we have to sit and use every week, which, I mean, there is a use to that, but I don't want that to be to a fault to where we're losing that inspiration by doing it that way. So like, obviously Peter was talking about the shorts. So I've been kind of jumping in on that. There's the latest pod leader meeting, that they just put out. So I've been doing that. So I'm early on with that. I've done a couple of the shorts that we've been working on, trying to see how to actually do that, because I'm super new to doing shorts, and I'm learning even how to do it on a basic level. So depending on how that goes, I could see the pod leader meeting be an interesting thing to highlight as well. So we're still just kind of building everything out, doing what I can do in the time that I have, obviously. And yeah, just moving forward. I'd like it to be faster, but it is what it is at this point. So, but yeah, like I said, collaboration is encouraged by anyone here. I know we're getting new people into the ambassador meetings, and yeah, if any of that sounds interesting, or if you're watching the recording of this, feel free to reach out to us in the SingularityNet Discord in the podcast channel, or reach out to me, Julian Collins, or whoever, just to talk about that. So, I mean, that's basically most of it.
I think that sounds awesome, going with what's kind of exciting and what feels relevant, and what feels exciting for you, probably going to be exciting for the community as well, and stuff changes so much here. And I mean, like right now, it would be cool even just to set up kind of an impromptu podcast for the Rejuve, since they had their launch, and going on in the back end, and what are future plans, and talk with the Deb, the CTO, about the AI that runs it, because it's cool stuff that we don't always get to see or feature, right? So.
Yeah. I'm part of that. I'm waiting on that invite too, because I'm gonna participate in the beta too. So that'll be cool, because I'll have firsthand, experience going through it, and yeah, that would be great. I love the idea of Rejuve. I'm super into, life extension, and I think that's so cool. I'm so excited to see where that all goes.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a decent update, I feel, on the podcast work group. And I do want to actually make the bridge a little to what's on the sheet, like on the roles side of things. Because I think, let me make that full screen for the recording. Yeah, I think that's like a very good example of a work group where the work you're doing isn't so much translated into tasks like translation tasks are. Those are very clear cut, like do this, complete it, done. And yeah, being in a work group, trying to get to get a podcast going, that doesn't work that way. And it's been mentioned a couple of times over in the past townhalls to get a setup going for more role-based rewards. And yeah, I figured, as you can see on the sheet, this is just a suggestion. This is just my a bit of an estimate, like what I felt like this would make sense. Also looking a bit at the available budgets, and it's still very open to discussion and adjusting these numbers. But I would suggest to basically to reserve an allocation of 5,000 tokens for the work group lead, which, well, in this case would be you. And then additionally to that, it's really just a suggestion to have a 2,500 tokens available to distribute by you on your judgment to those workgroup members contributing. And yeah, I guess it's a bit depending on the size of the workgroup, because at some point, if you've got 100 people, it doesn't make sense, these numbers. But that's why it's a suggestion, I guess. So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds great. I mean, that sounds good to me. I mean, I don't have any real, objections to something like that. That's a lot. I mean, as passionate as I am about the community, I mean, I own AGIX. I've done all the airdrops and stuff, but I mean, 5,000 to me is a lot. I mean, even though I know the token price is for everything right now is low. I mean, that's a lot to me, and obviously, moving forward, we all believe that that's the value of that's going to go up and up and up. So I don't know. Yeah, that sounds great as a starting point to me. Like I said, I don't have any immediate objections or thoughts to that. I mean, I guess the idea is that of the 5,000, the 2,500 of the 5,000 would be split up to distribute as seen fit to, or would that be extra?
I was intending it to be extra. I did not properly word that, I guess, there.
No, that's okay. I was just wondering.
No, that's
I mean,
cool. I like this idea, and then the 2,500 to distribute to members or participants is cool. And then potentially also, as a work group leader, you could turn those tokens into task rewards. Have 500 that go to a promotion task or something, and 1K go to somebody who helps, and or something like that. So that would be cool too. It kind of gives you a budget to work with, or even to incentivize guests if desired, which may not be needed. But there's kind of need to have a budget for that, either for distribution
that's so cool.
That's cool. I like that paper.
Yeah.
So just for the record, anybody who is not the work group leader of this specific work group, any thoughts, any comments? For example, basically giving those tokens to be distributed to other members. Is that something that makes sense to everybody here?
I think it's cool.
And then this, just to reiterate, it's just a suggestion. Makes perfect sense to check in after a while to see if the numbers still make sense. If you find yourself, we'll have to see and figure out if these numbers need changing. I can imagine at some point if there's a lot of people putting a lot of work, then this 2,500 might be, because if it would get split for 8 people, the number goes pretty low per person. So yeah.
Hey,
agreed.
When AGX is $1, this might be more than we need to spend on a single project.
Very true.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just have to kind of keep an eye on it, and just like everything else, just constantly iterate as we go. It's exciting, kind of,
Okay, then I think we can go with that. I guess then the question becomes, do we retroactively do this for the past month? Because I would feel personally, at least, you've been putting in the work, so it also doesn't feel like purely my decision to make.
Yeah, for sure. I would just want everyone to be on board. I just want everyone to be okay with it. So whatever you guys think.
Sounds good to me.
Any objections from anybody else? All right. Oh, I now understand the part where Tivo explains that he cannot take notes when he's speaking, because this will make it into the notes, but I will do that. I mean, it's on the sheet already, so it's fine.
Yeah, but I think it'll be good to have that extra allocation to be able to give out to people, because that will be a cool incentive, I think, to have people jump in and want to help out, because I mean, that's where we're at, is we could certainly use a little bit of extra help jumping in on stuff and just more collaboration. So that's exciting to have that extra. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think it's going to go good. Getting more people involved.
Well, it's the other way around. Thanks a lot for you. You're putting in the efforts of getting the working group going. So yeah, that's the main thing.
It goes both ways, I guess.
Sure. Let's see. Well, on the structure work group, it's actually pretty interesting. Right now, I did not put it on the sheet, and also did not connect it to any numbers. But since we're talking about the topic, might as well, I guess. Because yeah, for that work group, I think the same holds in a way. Like, not super sure who I would assign on, or who can be like, looking back at the past 2 months, who would be the working group lead so much. That's a bit tricky, but
maybe it's, instead of a lead for that particular group, maybe it's just a membership distribution. The 2, 3, 4 people that have been the top contributors. Spread tokens equally among them in appreciation for that until a lead emerges.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then number-wise, I would say, like you say, until a lead emerges, I would say for now have perhaps 5,000 for distribution, and then when a lead emerges, perhaps use the same numbers as this.
Yeah.
Would that make sense?
Yeah.
And again, of course, with the same clauses, like reiterating and checking in if it still makes sense a month from now, let's say. Okay.
I'm going to try to jump back over to my PC setup. I think I'm back, so bear with me here.
Sure. Yeah, then the next thing on the slide actually is something Haley introduced or mentioned earlier, and yeah, if you don't mind, I would like to ask you to perhaps share that suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's always this potential for kind of a disconnect between, the Singularity ecosystem and projects and the community, where the communication is not always as tight as one would love to have. So it would be very cool to have some community ambassadors that step up, volunteer to work specifically with different projects. We still need to check in with the projects, but for instance, somebody to work closely with Rejuve, and somebody to work closely, an ambassador to work closely with Mindplex and such, and find a way, for them to participate on a weekly basis in maybe kind of a meetup, and get to understand what's going on in the project, ideate with the team, give feedback from the community about what people are excited about and looking for, and would be the biggest priorities from a community's perspective versus, it looks like a big deal to the Rejuve team, but the community's like, meh. So kind of bring that kind of communication into the project. And then also they'd have to be sign a non-disclosure agreement, just so that they're, keeping what needs to be private, and it's appropriate and such, but the things that can be shared, bring that information and that ideation, and get community feeling on aspects back to the community itself, right? So creating that greater permeability and transparency between the projects and between the community. Another really great prospect would be the AI DSL group. They're in the midst. the early stages of designing the AI DSL system, but it will be for developers to use, right? It'll be for AI developers who want to post onto the platform and have their be AI DSL compliant. So bringing in a couple of devs to look at how it's shaping and what it'll be good for and the use cases would probably be a really powerful way to make sure that AI DSL is optimized and maximized for the actual SNet AI developers who will to use it. So that was a thought I had. Again, it's something that we need to work closely with the project leads themselves to find out how that could work. But I wanted to check in with the ambassadors and see if there's interest in that, in getting behind the scenes look at the projects and being that venue of communication.
Yeah, definitely have interest. I definitely have interest here. Yeah, there's a lot of projects I'm interested in. Some more than others. I mean, there's a general interest in everything, but there's certainly, like, for example, playing music, like Jam Galaxy seems really cool. And I've been learning day trading stuff, so SDAO, very interesting, something like that. Yeah, so Rejuve, there's pretty much everything I think is really cool, but there's probably at least 3 or 4 or 5 that Pathform actually is one of them quite interested in. I know that's really early days, but I'm super interested in seeing how that goes. So yeah, love to try to fit it in, at least figure something out.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, we can make that happen. Yeah, this goes also for people watching, of course. If you're interested, do reach out.
NewNet also has our tester program going. If you're interested in helping test NewNet, make sure you fill out the form before, I think it's 6 p.m. CET tomorrow. We're going to close the form because we've already gotten over 1,000 applicants. So yeah, just a plug for that.
Where do I find that, actually?
You know what? I think I posted it on here on Discord. If you go to NewNet,
Okay.
scroll down to NewNet general. Yeah,
Okay.
I posted the Medium article, and it has a link to the Google form.
Yep, I see it here. And that's just like using your phone or your home PC kind of thing, beta type deal?
Yeah, you need to fill out the form, and depending on your expertise and your hardware, you might get called separately for one of the testing rounds.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right. Let's see. Where are we at? Yes, something to note. I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but part of if you would be attending like meetings within within the SNet ecosystem, like the more internal meetings, a part of that is a non-disclosure agreement, which is not just I always think of it as just a formality, but it's a serious thing, of course. Yeah, that just as a note, also for those watching this back later, that's something to consider. It's basically you wouldn't be able to share the secret sauce. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers the roles. Quick check on the clock. Yeah, might be best to move on to the next. This does need a refresh. Apologies. There we go. Yeah, wanted to provide a little bit budgeting overview, since we've been going for more or less 2 months now with the ambassador program. I'm not gonna read everything that is on the screen, but basically monthly budget is 62.5, and for 2 months you get added together 125,000. I made a little overview of what is currently being assigned or open as tasks, and the total of that comes down to 42,500 tokens. So yeah, there's a bit of there's an actual bigger budget than what we're spending, and this does include these 2 work group roles we just discussed, and a working group lead. So yeah, in a way, we're potentially we can have 3 times as much output as that we're currently putting. So that's quite interesting in a way. I think pretty much every meeting I do push on the fact that if people have suggestions for tasks or feel like they want to contribute something which can be beneficial to the ambassador program, to reach out. But this is still very much the case, as you can see. Like current allocations are 3 times bigger than what we're spending. So this also made me consider like maybe we should have even more roles, see what we can do there. But yeah, bottom line is like I don't want. I would really prefer people to step up with, like you mentioned earlier on the podcast work group, with something they feel passionate about and something they want to contribute, instead of the other way around, putting tasks to see if somebody would potentially be interested in doing those tasks. So in a way, it's not a big deal that there's quite a big difference, because these tokens will remain available and will just, it's part of the budget, so it's not getting lost or anything. But this does provide a bit of a bigger budget for the coming months. That's also a way of looking at it. I guess if we would spread it out, would make the budget closer to 70,000 for the remaining months of the year. For what that's worth. If people have suggestions on tasks, by all means do reach out. Kind of a quick check right now if there's anybody which happen to have some thoughts in the back of their mind, like maybe this could work for the ambassador program.
I can't help but think about what we had kind of mentioned before with that commenting, trying to have someone engaging with like the YouTube, comments. That I think that could be a useful role as far as trying to get more engagement and, retain and kind of show more engagement to people as they're jumping in and asking questions. I think that could be an interesting role. Not sure if that would exactly fit in with what you were, thinking. It's just what came to mind.
Yeah, I think I do agree on that being very useful. It does connect though, like that would require people who enjoy doing that and stepping up to be like, I want to do that, and then it would be perfectly fine.
For sure. Well, I mean, I'd like to do that. The only thing I would say as a caution would be that obviously I don't have the technical, I'm not like a developer or anything, so when it comes to like technical questions and things of that nature, I guess it would be fine because I could just direct people to specific things, to specific, whatever, Discords, websites and things like that, or people perhaps. But just as far as basic engagement, I think I could handle it. And then, but yeah, that's the only thing that I'd be like, if there's a super technical question, there's a question for me of like, how would I go about, it would just be directing people, I guess, to the right channel.
Fair enough. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. That's what I find myself doing as well on Telegram a lot. So, I'm also not a dev, and people do ask every now and then like very tricky questions, and That's fine. Yeah, that makes me wonder what the best way of going about creating that role is. I guess having a bit of a check-in, perhaps even on simply on the chat, would make sense. But yeah, it's tricky. In a way, I like this town hall meeting to be the what's the word? Basically, the place where decisions get made. At the same time, I don't really want to create an idea and push it through in the same meeting. So yeah, I would be very open for suggestions on that role. So if you, yeah, but perhaps a couple of lines on that in the chat, and then perhaps there can be some ideation. Some yeah, people might share what they think about it, and then we can see next week if we came to a conclusion.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Anybody any remarks about this quite a big difference between the available budget and the allocated tokens? Or is it just like, yeah, whatever, just get on with it?
Looks like we've got some really good room to grow as we expand. Cool.
Very true. All right. Yeah, wanted. I don't want to take any credit for this because this is not something I created. This is something Felix, Tivo, and the Swine Treasury wrote. But it's something interesting to have a little peek at. I imagine at some point when yeah, it would make more sense to have either Felix or Tivo address this, but yeah, I couldn't skip on it completely, so I did include the slide. Yeah, I think that's all I'm gonna say on that. Just
Yeah,
think about
cool.
if you feel like it. And that is pretty much the last slide for today. I do see the next meeting date is very incorrect there. Next meeting would be Tuesday, 5th of July. I just added that because it's just silly. There we go. Perfect. Tuesday, 5th. But for now, if there's any topics, any questions, ideas, or random thoughts connected to the to anything, basically, those are very welcome. And yeah, now would be the time for that. I can only conclude we covered everything very thoroughly and clearly. If there's no questions. Nice.
Nicely done. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's actually nice to be within the 1 hour time slot for a change. I think that's it then. Good stuff. Thanks a lot for joining. And yeah, this will be uploaded tomorrow.
Okay.
And the notes are a little bit in progress still, but will be in the description of the YouTube video.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining. And, see you on Discord.